Hello there guys, welcome back to the channel and to another video. I hope you have been doing well, and today's video is going to be interesting because today someone very special to me asked to design a logo for her upcoming business. Now can you guess who it was? Well, it is my mom. Now, she has turned into a baking enthusiast. She took some classes, she has practiced quite a lot, and now is the time that she wants to take this business to the next level. And how can I say no? So today is the right opportunity for me to show you my logo design process, and I hope you can pick up a few pointers from it as well and use it in your processes. So let's begin with it. A logo shows not only an image of the brand, but it also describes the purpose without actually using many words to say that. Within the purpose of the logo is hidden its visibility as well as identity. It should be pleasing as well as unique. The image that a logo creates should be clear. It should have that motive behind the brand. It should reflect that motive. Now, one of the biggest challenges for me in this design was the fact that I was tasked with coming up with a brand name too, and that can be a very difficult process. Now, the brand is supposed to be related to cakes and bakes, right? It should be something very sweet, but if you think of any names such as Cakes and Bakes or Sweet Tooth, any of those sort of names, they are just too cliched. Now, I also thought including my mom's name in this brand and going for something such as Sumi's Bakes or Sumita Bakes, but again, it is still cliched. Now, the location of this brand is of importance because this brand is going to start in Bhubaneswar, the city of Bhubaneswar, and the IATA code for Bhubaneswar is BBI. So that is a brand name which I ultimately settled on, BBI Bakes. Now, as you can see here, I have done my brainstorming process, and the next step in this logo design process is to get inspiration. And what is the best place to find inspiration? Well, it is the place where a collective group of pro illustrators, graphics designers, and all types of other designers in general keep posting. Behance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google, do a quick search, go on to Behance, and then search for bakery logos. And what I am doing is basically I'm assimilating all these different types of logo designs which have been created by the professionals, and I'm trying to pick up some ideas from it. So the common theme which you will find here is that these logos do reflect some amount of that softness and refinement in their brand names, as well as the font and the typeface which they are using, because after all, a cake is meant to be soft, it is meant to be sweet, it is meant to be savored, and it is meant to be enjoyed on joyous occasions. So that is what the brand should reflect. Ideally, I also need to reflect this in BBI Bake. Now, a quick side note here. Why do I talk about taking inspiration from others? Well, this is because Behance is a collective, as I said, of professionals and pros who are working in this industry and do know quite a lot about the stuff that they are doing. And obviously, if you're following the pros, if you're following the artists who are better than you are looking up to people who are better than you. You are on every terms on a path to improvement. Because when you look up to someone, when you are idolizing someone, it means that you are going to pick up the good qualities from there. Now, it doesn't mean that people who are less skilled than you or less experienced than you can't provide you good experience. You should learn from them too. But now, as I said before, the next important thing in designing a logo, in designing for a brand, is the typeface which you are going to choose. Now, if you are going for any commercially licensed typeface, you do have to buy that distribution license to use it commercially. But you can go for an OFL licensed font, which are free for commercial use. Now, the OFL stands for an open font license, and what this does is basically it enables the user to use these fonts for commercial purposes, for monetary purposes, and not pay a royalty fee. Now, one of the best websites which I've found in recent times, apart from Google Fonts, is Fontesk. So I'll do a quick search on Google for Fontesk, and I'll go and I'll browse for all the fonts which I think will be the best suitable for this brand. Now, what I'm looking for is sort of a feminine type of a vibe in this font. I want it to be rounded, I want it to be soft, I want it to be subtle. I don't want it to stand out too much because after all, this is not a sportswear brand, this is not an energy drink brand. It is going to be about sweets, cookies and cakes. So I need it to be a bit subtle. Now for the main design, the main display font of this logo, I have chosen the Circon font. And why did I do that? Well, because it matches my criteria of being rounded. It is not so soft as I would like, but it is very sophisticated, modern, and it just is more harmonious in creating this visual rhythm which I want in this logo. What I do after selecting my fonts is I quickly install them, all the ones which I would like to use, and then I do a quick swatch of all these fonts. Now while swatching these fonts, I also keep in mind about which fonts I want in the main logo and which ones I can use for the text part. For example, my posts, in case of creating any other brand imagery, brand related text, and which fonts the client can use. Now obviously, if the client wants, you can create a custom typeface. There is a very expensive process by which you can do this. It is not very difficult, but not too easy also, and I will make sure to cover that in a future video. But for now, we are going to go for these 3 for commercial use fonts with an OFL distribution license. Okay, so coming to the software part of things, what software am I using? Well, I want to keep this as accessible as possible. So I'm not going to use any Adobe Suite software, I'm going to use Inkscape. Now Inkscape is an open source graphics design software. It is actually limitless if you ask me, because you have a great set of creative tools in Inkscape built in, and you can further use these add-ons and modded toolkits on Inkscape too. I've not tried many myself, so I cannot recommend, but the stock software is just too smooth and beautiful to work with. So if you want to download Inkscape, I'll leave a link in the description section and you can go forth and use it yourself. Oh, and yes, you cannot complain that you are unable to find a good design software, because if you look at the portfolio of works which have been made with Inkscape, your mind will be absolutely boggled, and I am assuring you that. So don't think that you are limited by software. You will be limited by your skills if you are using Inkscape. Now, after I have finalized which fonts I would like to use, I take a careful look at the geometry of these fonts because I want them to be harmonized. Now, as you can see here, I am modulating the structure of the letter B and the letter I. The dot in the letter I is a bit oddly placed for my liking, and anyways, I'm going to replace it with a heart later on. And as for the B, the upper part of this all caps B is not really to my liking as well. And again, hey, this is an open font license font, right? So I can modify it to my liking and create whatever kind of a design I want. Now you can get really creative with this, and I talked with my mom. I gave her a few of my ideas which were coming to my mind. So what I have done here basically is there is a bite being taken out of the B, the A is smiling, and the 2 B's in this logo have happy eyes. Also the E has an eye and it is rushing forth to eat that extra dot which is used to characterize that letter. And obviously it looks like Pac-Man, so I decided to make its eye a bit different so that I don't really run into any kind of infringement issues in terms of copyright. One thing to keep in mind when you are altering the geometry of the fonts is to blend it as perfectly as possible. You don't want any stray curves, any stray nodal points on these vectors. Now, as you might already know if you have experience with vectors, is that a clean node structure is the key to a clean design. You don't want any jagged edges, you don't want any misalignment of these letters, of the characters, of the shapes, and that is what you should really keep in mind. So take your time with it, refine the geometry, change it to your liking, but also keep all types of alignment in your mind. Keep it always at the back of your head and take care to keep everything super clean, because it will help you later on in refining that logo. Whenever revisions are to be made, it will be very easy to work on them. And if you're having these clean nodal structures, obviously it will be very easy to identify errors as well. Now comes the fun part. After I have fixed the typeface, I have played around with the geometry, I have created all the characters which I want. What I do is I play around with the placement of these letters, because it really shows in the final product about what you were trying to target in terms of the design language. Now what I want is a very close and cozy look, a comfortable look for this logo, and for that what I want to do is I want to overlap the letters a little bit, and I want to have them in different color shades alternately, and that is exactly what I'm doing here. I'm overlapping the letters a bit, I'm checking the alignment every time on every step, and finally I have come up with this arrangement. I asked my mom again that how is this looking, and once she gave the green signal, I went forth. And coming to this part, communication. Communication is very important. It is very crucial, in fact, whenever you are creating any types of graphics designs, because whenever you are communicating with the client back and forth, you get to know the exact needs, you get to know the exact expectations of the client, and if there are any changes to be made, you can just do it on the fly. So it is always the best thing, the recommended thing to be done to maintain a constant communication, a back and forth communication with your client at all times possible. So coming to the typeface for the remainder of this design, I chose Anna. Now why I chose Anna is a very sweet reason in itself. Anna is the surname of the mother of its type designer, Jorge de Buen Ana, and the soft look of her mother, he says, is expressed through the delicate serifs and strong stems that accentuate the typical neoclassical vertical texture. And obviously with a font of this kind of a backstory, I did want to use it, and it just gives it such a clean look. It is very subtle and professional looking font, and once again it is under the OFL license, so it is free for commercial use. You see, I told you, there are hundreds of free fonts which you can download and use as it is, or you can modify to your own needs. So keep in mind that it is not just paid resources which are always good. You need to search for the free resources, for the open source resources as well. You need to look at all the things which the beautiful internet repository has to offer, and you need to bend them and use them as per your needs. Once I have designed the major part of this logo, what remains is to create a B-roll, is to create some different types of variations so that I can make my client, here my mom, understand how to use this logo. Now you can play around with different types of solid colors, you can play around with different types of negative space concepts, and you can create these variations as I have done here. And finally, let's look at a practical use of this logo in sort of an introductory ad B-roll. Let's look at it. Hope you liked this, and I was able to give you a good insight into how I design logos, into how I go about communicating with my clients, into the resources which I'm using, into the softwares which I'm using, and I hope you find all these tips useful in your creative journey. I'll see you in the next one, and I do have more of these types of videos coming soon in the future. So don't forget to share this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.